You think morality is about right and wrong. You think society is here to protect you. You think being good makes you worthy. But what if all of that is a lie? What if morality was never about truth, just a way to keep dangerous people in line? What if kindness is weakness and cruelty is just misunderstood strategy? And what if the real secret to power is learning how to use both without becoming a monster? Let's begin. Why do we admire people who hurt us more than people who are good to us?
I think the reason we admire people who hurt us more than people who are good to us is because it's a challenge already conquered with people who are good to us. That means I think there is a hierarchical system in the human being's mind. Hell, I believe when you are a pack animal like a human being is, we're like very adjacent to wolves. We're very adjacent to apes. In all sorts of mammals who live in groups, there is the hierarchy in their mind. So when someone is good to us, we immediately assume they're either at the same position as us, but more so that they're probably below us. And therefore, it is our biological imperative to want to appeal to someone who is above us in the hierarchy. And in this particular case, that above us in the hierarchy ends up becoming someone who is not good to us.
So then, is kindness a signal of weakness in the animal brain, and cruelty a signal of strength?
I would say yes, definitely. I mean, think about it. If your imperative is subjugation, if your imperative is control, if your imperative is to survive, survival requires resources, survival requires reproduction, and survival requires dominance so that you don't. Because you want to dominate other species firstly, you want to dominate your own species so that you are at the top and you have a higher likelihood for survival, and you want to be able to reproduce. And when all of these three traits are combined, kindness becomes something which is either only be used strategically. For example, you invite other peoples to your party so that you can enlarge your pack, or it should be something which is not used at all because you're trying to subjugate through force. The point is, kindness in a lot of ways is taught to us to be used normally. It is taught to us to be used on a daily basis, not as a power move, not as a strategic play, but as an innate quality. Now what that does is that when you recognize there is a hierarchy, when you recognize there is a power to be grabbed, then kindness can be used strategically. But when you make your mindset itself kindness centered, then it is a mind which is trying to subjugate itself. It is a mind that is trying to surrender. Yeah, it will get you through this current society, but it will never get you the sort of dominance, the sort of power, the sort of control that leads to survival and reproduction in the wild. And in this particular society that we live in as modern human beings, that equates to being a successful person.
So by that logic, modern society didn't kill the animal. It just gave it manners, softened the language, and called surrender virtue. So here's the next push. If kindness is now currency but still seen as weakness, then is morality just hierarchy rebranded?
Exactly. The point of, let's figure out where the whole concept of morality comes from. So we can take a biological stance, and then we can take a more modern stance. From a biological standpoint, morality comes from is a way to enforce a set of laws for the betterment of society, for the betterment of species. It is when you put individual needs aside and focus on the society as a whole. Why is that required? And so that we can expand as a species, so that we all get the opportunity to reproduce. Think about it. If murder was, for example, not outlawed, people will end up killing each other, right? That reduces the number of people there are, that reduces the number of reproductions possible, that reduces a lot of things. And if conflict of that sort of nature is allowed on a daily basis, what that causes is that the largest structures of a city, of a country, they can never be formed because people will be fighting amongst each other. The largest structure that could be formed will be like a family. So we will be more akin to gorillas than we'll be akin to human beings. And now a human being might as well be the most intelligent creature on the goddamn planet, but that does not mean that that human being has the capacity to create civilization as a whole. The only reason we were able to advance this much is because we had the power of compounding thought, the power of compounding innovation, and the power of outsourcing work to other people. I can create a part of the machinery, someone else can create another part, and 100 of us combined can finally create a proper machine which can function and serve a role. And even when all of us can't, then people who are temporarily slowly ahead of us. Like in the future, they will slowly improve upon it, and that is how we have the phone. We have phones right now. We have steam engines right now. We have so much innovation. Hell, even industrial revolution is something that came into being because of this nature of humanity, and that is why morality is important, because morality is the foundation of society, and morality is what led us to become this amazing. And that was the so biologically it makes sense, and societally, or in a modern sort of way, another way to enforce morality is either through laws or through religion, but both of them ultimately serve the same purpose, whether it is through a deity, whether it is through an institution. It is to serve society, and the reason we want to serve society is we want to serve species, and the reason we want to serve the species is because so that everyone has a higher probability of being able to reproduce and survive.
So morality isn't about right or wrong. It's about scale. It's a behavioral protocol we evolved, not for truth, but for civilizational expansion. Here's the next crack in the wall. If morality is designed to protect society from chaos, then what does it do to the individual who thrives in chaos?
The individual might, okay, so it's very similar to investing in stocks. For example, if I do learn to invest in stocks, that means that I might become someone who's very successful, or I can completely be destroyed. The point is that chaos can lead to great outcomes for me, that can also lead to greatly bad outcomes for me as well. It is how I navigate individually, correct? But the way that society is built, the way that morality is built, the way all of these institutions are built is so that the average person is in a more beneficial position. It is like investing in a fixed deposit where you know you're going to get a 7% interest. 7% is not a lot, but it is consistent growth that it can compound over time. While on the other hand, if I learn to master the chaos, if I learn to master the stock market, I might be able to get 100 times returns, and I can do that consistently, and that can like gather me a lot of money. So it will definitely be better than the 7% interest. But as I am someone, for example, who learns to master chaos, if everyone is thrown into chaos, there will be more cases of people who lose to chaos, and therefore as a net, society itself won't get that 7% interest rate, won't get that consistent growth, but rather it will most likely be stagnant, right? Some people will rise to the top, some people will rise to the bottom, but the sum total of the growth will be 0%. While on the other hand, by this morality framework, by the societal framework, by this removal of individualization, it hampers my growth to some extent, but it makes sure that I do get some form of growth. It is a safe alternative. It is not the best alternative, but it is an alternative that makes sure everyone grows, everyone survives, everyone gets a chance to reproduce and live.
So society is a risk limiter, not a growth maximizer. It's a hedge against collapse, not a pathway to greatness. Which means that society is not necessarily just a risk. It only functions as what reduces the risk when it comes to the individual as well. But as a societal way, think about it. When you try to not limit possibilities, when you're trying to go into chaos, when you're trying to be someone who can do whatever, who has entire free will, as a species we might not grow. As a species, there must be balance. Some will rise, some won't, some will fall. Maybe there will be a 0% growth, maybe there will be 2% growth, maybe there will be minus 5% growth. We can't predict that, but we can predict this. We can predict that a society which is established on morality, which is established on framework, which is established on truth, that is defined by what benefits society as a whole, is going to be the most beneficial thing for our species as a whole, and it is going to help the individuals. So it might not be the optimal path for you, it might not be the optimal path for me, it might not be the optimal path for an individual, but overall it is the most safest path of growth for the individual, and for society as a whole it is the most optimal and the quickest way to grow. And that exposes the real divide. Society isn't built for the outlier, it's built to preserve the median. So here's the final thread. What happens when an outlier tries to operate within a system never designed to handle him?
When an outlier tries to work in that system, it will be resisted because the system is not meant for the outlier. The system is meant for the average person, and the system does do benefits. That is the paradoxical nature of the system. While on the other hand, it makes sure the average and the below average person is uplifted, it is going to do harm to the exceptional person. So the way out of it is not to fight the system, because system is actually doing the right thing given its parameters, and nothing can accommodate everyone, right? But you need to figure out a way to work with the system instead of trying to dismantle it completely, because not only is trying to dismantle the system inherently selfish because you're doing it for yourself, even though you know it will ruin society, but it is also something that might even be detrimental to you, because even though you feel like you are someone who gets the opportunity to improve and to ride chaos like a fucking dragon, that does not mean you might not fail. So the point is, you make your baseline not the chaos of riding a dragon and failing, but your baseline should be what the society provides, and then your ceiling should be the opportunity of chaos. You balance chaos and society's moral frameworks in a way that even if you fail, you still get that 7%, but if you succeed, you get that 100%. Now that approach will be the way out, and I'm not here to tell anyone how to do it. I am only here to tell people that it is possible, that it can be done, and this is the path. It's all for everyone's own life, it is all for everyone's own individual path, but they should realize the path towards true success is not to fall into chaos, it is not to completely follow society, it is to maximize them pragmatically. Make your baseline the growth of society, and make your upper ceiling the infinite constraints of the chaos. Make it the infinite possibilities that you can get by your individual growth. Your upper ceiling should not exist, it should be infinity, while your baseline should be a steady growth. That is the way to get out of this circle, and you will have to figure out your own path out of it.
What you just heard wasn't a rejection of society. It wasn't a glorification of chaos either. It was something much harder to grasp. Balance with eyes open. Most people think they have to choose. Conform to the system or burn it down. But Pri just showed you a third way. A way where you use society as your safety net, while you climb into the fire to find out what you're truly capable of. Make the baseline survival. Make the ceiling infinite. And build a life that honors both. Patterns are everywhere.